You're looking at a screen right now, aren't you? Of course you are. Your phone, your TV, maybe your watch, we are surrounded by them. But have you ever stopped to think about the decades of work, the incredible breakthroughs it took to get that brilliant display into your hands? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on the fascinating and honestly pretty surprising story of the screen.
And let's start with something wild. No, this isn't some CGI from a sci-fi movie. This is a real 111-inch dual-sided flexible TV. I mean, just look at it. Seeing something like this just begs the question, how on earth did we get here? Where does a screen this futuristic even begin?
Well, to find that answer, we've got to go back in time. Back to one single discovery that would completely change how we look at the digital world. Let's set the dial to 1987. Now, in the world of technology, that's practically the Stone Age. But this is the year. This is when the seed was planted for the very screen you're probably holding in your hand today.
You know, it all kicked off with two research scientists, Tang and Van Slyke. And they were working in the labs of a company famous for, well, something completely different, Eastman Kodak. They were playing around with organic materials that could do something amazing, give off their own light.
And what came out of their work was a study that's now known, pretty simply, as the first OLED paper. But don't let that simple name fool you. This was a huge deal. It was the spark that lit the fuse on what would become a multi-billion-dollar industry.
So what is an OLED anyway? Well, the acronym stands for Organic Light-Emitting Diode. We'll dig into why that's so incredibly special in just a minute, but for now, just know this is the technology that changed the game for screens.
Now, look, having a brilliant scientific paper is one thing, but turning that science experiment into an actual product you can go out and buy, that is a whole other ballgame.
The very first time this tech made it out into the real world wasn't in a TV or a phone. It was actually a tiny little display for a car stereo made by Pioneer. Talk about a humble beginning for a revolutionary technology, right?
But the real turning point, the moment things really took off, was the first mass production of an AMOLED display. That AM just stands for Active-Matrix, which is a fancy way of saying that every single tiny pixel could be controlled on its own. This was the key to making bigger, sharper screens, and it was all thanks to a joint effort by Kodak and Sanyo Electric. And where did this amazing new screen first show up? Right here, in the Kodak LS633 digital camera. It's kind of fitting, isn't it? This little camera became the thing that really launched OLED into all sorts of new gadgets. And once that camera hit the market, man, the floodgates just burst open. OLED wasn't just creeping forward anymore, it started showing up, well, everywhere. First, it jumped into our pockets. All of a sudden, high-end smartphones like the Samsung Galaxy S7 were using AMOLED screens to make their displays just pop with these incredible colors and super deep blacks. Then bam, it landed on our wrists. The Apple Watch needed a screen that was bright and colorful, yeah, but also incredibly thin and power efficient. OLED was the absolute perfect solution.
It even showed up in premium music players, like this Sony Walkman, which just proved how versatile this technology really was.
Okay, so what was the big deal? Why did everyone suddenly jump on the OLED train? Well, it all comes down to a few key things. Because each pixel makes its own light, you don't need a bulky backlight. That's what makes those super slim designs possible. It also means when a pixel's supposed to be black, it just turns off completely. That gives you perfect, inky blacks and what they call infinite contrast. And for movies or gaming, those pixels can switch on and off almost instantly, giving you a response time other screens just can't touch. All right, so OLED had conquered our pockets, it was on our wrists. There was really only one place left to go, the living room. It was time for this tech to get big, like really, really big. And that's exactly what happened. The technology scaled up in a massive way, taking over living rooms with these huge, absolutely stunning televisions. I mean, a 65-inch curved OLED TV brought a cinematic experience home with a level of color and contrast that was just impossible before. And that brings us full circle. From a little display in a car stereo, to a camera, to your phone, and now right back to that mind-bending flexible screen we saw at the very beginning. The journey from that first science paper in 1987 to a flexible dual-sided television has been pretty incredible. And it leaves us with a really fascinating question. If our screens don't have to be flat, rigid rectangles anymore, what's next?
Are we going to have screens we can roll up like a newspaper? Screens that are totally transparent? Maybe even woven right into our clothes? One thing is for sure, the story of your screen is far from over.